I'm, I say, a reformed serial entrepreneur. And when I was young and dumb in my 20s and starting my first businesses, it wasn't really my fault. I mean, I was kind of lied to. I believed that it was all about hustle. So I would just outwork everybody. And in my very first company, I mean, I literally was living secretly in my one-room office, sleeping under the desk and waking up in the morning, showering at the YMCA, coming back to the office to put in another, 18-hour day. And I did that for a year. And that business crashed and burned. It showed that it isn't just about working hard, working every available hour. And the next business did a little better, but didn't do great. And it was the classic mistake of letting myself get driven by the never-ending to-do list. To-do list, that's old school technology. The legend is that, Ivy Lee kind of invented the to-do list over 100 years ago, teaching Charles Schwab and the U.S. Steel executives how to run their day. And, back then, in a slower time, when organizations had tons of executives and middle managers and, secretaries, they were called secretaries back then, that approach probably worked. And for people who, I'm not saying this in a negative way, but people who have average responsibilities or an average career, it can still work today. None of these ultra productive people I interviewed talked about a to-do list. What they're using instead of a to-do list is their calendar. And it's a subtle difference, but a powerful difference. They're still writing down, getting it out of their brain, kind of capturing it into a notebook or somewhere else, but they're immediately scheduling it on their calendar. To-do list, as you know, it doesn't have the duration of items on it, so we tend to do the things that are fast. It doesn't have any weighted properties to it, so we do the things that, unfortunately are the urgent things instead of the important things. And I think the to-do list really is contributing to our overall stress levels. We're all running around so overworked and overwhelmed. When our brain knows that there's stuff that we need to take care of, but there's no plan attached, I think it's both conscious and unconscious, we're stewing on that. We're stressing about it. That's why we go home and it's late at night. We're so tired, but we're still wired and we can't fall asleep. So once it's on a calendar, you just move that to-do list, take all those items and schedule it. When it gets scheduled, it gets done. Never do meetings unless someone is writing you a check. Unless there's money transferring, don't do them. One of the early co-founders of Facebook, his new company is Asana, Dustin Moskovitz, he says that meetings again are lethal, and they've established no meeting Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, that's a creative day, that's a maker day, that's a do it day, that's not a meeting day. First of all, people think it's a 1 hour meeting. Well, no, if there's 10 people in the room, first of all, it's a 10-hour meeting. It's not a 1 hour meeting, but the bigger cost is the value that those people are providing. Taking a salesperson away from prospecting and into a meeting for, something that's not as important. Meetings and email are the big complaints, the big problems. And 3210. 3 stands for check your email 3 times a day or process your email 3 times a day. There's obviously, again, productivity ninjas that say, look, do it once a day. Just check it once a day and that's fine. And morning, noon, and night, I'm going to check it. I'm going to process it 3 times a day. The 2-1 stands for 21 minutes. So when I am processing my email, it's kind of like a Pomodoro. I'm setting 21 minutes on that clock and it's ticking down. And my goal is to get back to email inbox 0 by the time that ticks to 0. And 21 minutes is not a lot of time, and it sounds almost silly or corny, like, yeah, what's that going to do? It is amazing when you've got that countdown clock. It's almost like a game, and you just pound down that list, and you're always going through those, the 4 Ds of like, can I delete it? Boom, yes. If not, can I delegate it? Can I delegate this? Just forward it to somebody. Can I do it? Do it right now, touch it once within a few minutes. If not, then you want to defer it, which means schedule it. So as reported in Harvard Business Review, these 2 researchers went into companies, started watching what executives, middle managers were doing primarily white-collar workers, and they realized that they had much more control over their tasks than the individual workers thought. So they taught them to look every morning, to look at their to-do list or their calendar and ask 3 questions around drop, delegate, or redesign. So for drop, they were trained to ask, how valuable is this task? What would happen if I dropped it? For delegate, you ask, am I the only person who can do this task? Who else might be able to do it? And redesign says, how can I achieve roughly the same outcome, but in less time? Or, what would I do if I only had half the available time to try to get this thing done? Just by training people to ask those 3 questions, on average, people were able to save 6 hours of desk work each week and 2 hours of meeting time. Can you just drop them completely? Can you delegate things? It is so powerful. And people will say, I don't have team members reporting to me. I can't delegate anything. Delegating to me is just another form of outsourcing. So whether it's you're a solopreneur and you're hiring a VA, you're a stay-at-home parent and have decided to hire the teenager to mow your lawn, these are powerful tools. So drop, delegate, redesign ended up, on average, saving 8 hours of time each week. When I look at all the things I'm supposed to get done, he said, most people look and say, how can I get this thing done? Or how can I get it done in less time? I take the I out of it. How can this thing get done? It's not about, it's just the result. How can I get this result? Or how can this result occur? How can this result happen? And take yourself even out of it. It opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities. The time travel trick is a tool that we can use when we're finding that we're procrastinating on the significant items. We have this time dissonance where we're always discounting our future selves. So we have to think about all the ways we're going to sabotage ourselves and then come up with strategies now in the present to defeat that. So whatever the area is that we're struggling, whether it's writing that book we want to write, losing that weight, banging out those 50 cold calls, we just need to think about all the ways we're going to jeopardize ourselves in the future and come up with ways to combat those right now.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.